Good morning and welcome to the East Brandywine Township Board of Supervisors work session for Thursday, August 1st, 2019. Just a reminder, a recording device will be used during this meeting. I'm going to open it up for public comment for non-agenda items. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead. All right.
Hello. First, I want to apologize to Joe, the board, for not making it last night. I've had arbitration all week, and it ran till 6:30 because they wanted to let the one witness go. And I do have to leave and be there by 9 a.m. this morning, so I'll try to make this short. I wanted to talk as far as the latest filing for the consolidation, and as far as the board not receiving that ahead of time for review or input, or
What are you referring to exactly?
as far as the land development appeal from Carlino Development.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not familiar intimately with that litigation. Certainly apologize if you didn't get anything in time, but Kristen will be back on Monday.
Okay, but is it customary to do work without prior permission, or?
Again, you know, I'd love to comment upon it.
In any township.
Well, I'd love to
anywhere.
comment upon it, but until I'm not really aware of the litigation and what the consolidation is.
I'm saying in
So-
general, for any township that you do work for, do you just do work and then bill them, or do you ask them if they, or give input before you do something?
Again, I don't want to comment upon it. I don't know what your practices are here. You know, I think every township is different, so I'll probably just defer to that and wait till Kristen gets back. And certainly, if you've got issues, you can certainly talk to Kristen or Tom about those issues.
Okay, I do.
Absolutely.
I do have some issues with it. Jay, Kyle, I'd emailed you. Did you re-sign the order for that, to attach the 80-some pages?
I have no idea. I mean, you're going back quite a ways here.
Was last week, wasn't it?
Not last week.
25th?
Did I sign something last week? No, I didn't.
No, 2 weeks ago, I'd emailed both yourself and Jay and said, did you guys re-sign the order?
Sign it when?
Whenever Kristen was done with the.
Give me a date. I mean, this is, if it's today, no.
Kyle,
If it was last
it's
week,
the-
no.
it's
If
the
it was 2 weeks
25th.
ago, no. I signed 100 things a week.
Well, bear with me. And while I'm looking this up, are you attending the task order meeting?
I informed Scott that I was probably good to go, but I was confirming it tonight. That's the last I left it.
Okay, because I wasn't aware of that, and I'd requested if we could change it to a different date, and Scott had indicated that it wouldn't work with one of our consultants' schedules. But I would, considering I'm a supervisor, I'd like to be there. I would thought maybe Scott would be more accommodating, considering the original email went out requesting the availability of the supervisors.
And I think the problem there, and I agree that it was my proposal that we schedule this so that all three supervisors could attend the rescheduled task force meeting. And we have to coordinate that with a number of different individuals. And when Scott first sent out the proposal, I don't think either you or Kyle responded saying that you were available, so he just had to move forward with trying to get it scheduled, assuming that you could make it. So that's what puts us into this situation. But I would agree with you that if we have to push it off to September, we push it off to September. It's already going to be a special meeting. It's already going to have to be separately advertised. So it's important when we're trying to schedule these things that we get a prompt response, that staff gets a prompt response back so that they can move forward.
He only gave 5 hours before he scheduled it.
That's not the case, because I responded to the email. I think it was several days before it was actually scheduled.
Well,
It was the 19th of July, 2 days after the task force meeting,
Yes,
when I first sent out the request.
And we discussed those dates at the task force meeting, and you were there,
I
so.
was there. And at 9:22 on 7:29, at 9:22 in the morning, Jay, you had wrote, Scott, I'm available on the 29th. Bruce Rollins replied at 1:08 PM, I'm good on any day. And then Scott replied at 1:52, thank you, gents, August 29th it is. His original request was for the availability of the board, not for the availability of our planning commission chairman and one supervisor.
Well, but Bruce Rollins is also a member of the task force and it serves as the chairman of the task force. But on the 19th, he sent out the proposal for the 28th or the 29th of August.
I understand I was there, but again, I just think that, you know, I would prefer if our manager would follow maybe a little bit of instruction and maybe his own requests of, you know, I would think a board member's attendance would be more of a priority than a consultant's.
Well, I don't believe
because-
it can get approved without the board anyhow, so what,
And the whole purpose of this is you can't say it's more, the board's more important than the consultants. The whole point of this is to meet with the consultants so the consultants can address whatever questions you have. So it's important that everybody be there.
I understand that. Maybe I rephrased that wrong. I mean attendance as far as scheduling. So with that being said, I'd emailed you guys on July 22nd, and that's when I asked if you had re-signed the order that Kristen had stated in her June 6th email later that day after the Carlino land application decision was rendered. Kristen stated, quote, "The order can be re-signed once I send it attached to the decision," end quote. And I had raised on June 17th, when we received the 83 pages of conclusions of law, findings of fact and conclusions of law, if we had to re-vote on this, and she said no. And although in a prior email, she said that there'd have to be re-signed. So did you guys re-sign that?
again, if it has a signature on it and it's mine, then the answer is probably yes. If you're asking me something that was signed a month ago, I have no clue, and I don't know how, you have to ask Kristen on this. I can't answer your question right now because I don't know. I don't have a copy of it in front of me. I don't have anything other than you asking a question point blank at a township meeting.
Well, I asked, I did email you this, on 7/22, and you didn't respond.
Okay.
So, and then,
And I want to say something with respect to your comments about the motion to consolidate. I don't think it's been the practice. We have given Kristen and her firm the authorization to represent us with respect to that matter. That doesn't mean that we have to approve every single little thing that she does in the course of that representation. And it certainly, to me, makes a lot of sense to consolidate all of those matters because it will save a lot of time, effort, and expense rather than having them all heard separately. So I don't know what your issue is with respect to that motion to consolidate, but
well, my issue is that it was filed, and then I received it. And I understand you're an attorney, so it makes sense to you, but as myself not being an attorney, I would prefer some input on why, what's the purpose. Just when I briefly read it, it actually is a little bit misleading. It appears that that we rendered that entire 85-page decision on June 19th. And, or 18th, or whatever it was, I'm not sure it was 18th or 19th, and that obviously is not the case. I mean, our decision was based on 12. It's some of the stuff is misleading. It says in there, for one example, it's stuck out of the top of my head, that Joe Boldez had stated during the hearings that that it meets our ordinances. And although he did say during the hearings that the application did not meet our ordinance. So I think that there's some facts in that 80-page findings of facts that needs to be clarified. Same with LTL. It stated that he did not review the design of the road according to our ordinances, and although he said it did conform to all of our ordinances.
It seems like you're bouncing around. If you're saying that there's something wrong, or that you think those are factual inaccuracies in the ultimate decision, what does that have to do with the motion to consolidate?
Well, I'm done with that subject. I'm on to the,
Oh, well, okay.
so as far as the consolidation, I'm sorry, as far as the consolidation is putting all of the cases together. So I just think that it just appears that that we had signed something or agreed on something on a date that we weren't together or we met. And I think that is, should be addressed.
Well, I think that's something that can be addressed in an executive session with Kristen when she returns.
Okay.
Anything else?
No,
Anybody else have anything for non-agenda items? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the Township Solicitor for an ordinance amending Chapter 399.
Thank you. There are two ordinances that are before the Board of Supervisors this morning. The first ordinance, I'll read the title. It's an ordinance, the Township of East Brandywine, Chester County, Pennsylvania, amending Chapter 399 of the East Brandywine Township Code, entitled Zoning, and Section 300-17 definitions, to add a new definition for consumer fireworks, and to also, with regard to commercial service, limited industrial district, to amend Section A to add the sale of consumer fireworks as a use by right. There are three exhibits on behalf of the board this morning. The first exhibit is marked as B1, and that's the proof of publication in the Daily Local News on July 17th and July 24th. And marked as B2 is an email dated July 16th from my law firm to the Chester County Law Library, providing the proposed amendment for public inspection. And marked as B3 is the email dated July 16th from our office to the Daily Local News, providing the proposed amendment for public inspection. So with respect to all the notice requirements for this ordinance to be considered by the Board of Supervisors, they've all been met.
Any questions?
I have no questions. Public comment?
Any public comment? On the ordinances?
It basically means that the definition of consumer fireworks is contained in our land use code. And also, we have created an area within the township in the commercial service limited industrial district where sales of commercial fireworks can
Consumer.
occur. Consumer fireworks, I'm sorry. Commercial fireworks is something different. Before, it could occur practically anywhere because it wasn't defined where it could be. So that's Correct.
You may not be aware that the state recently changed regulations and definitions for fireworks. So if we don't do something to put it in a specific place, allow it within a specific place within the township, then we're fair game for wherever they want to put it, so by.
As well as they also changed, you're not allowed to buy them from tents anymore.
Right. So it's not that we're promoting the sale of fireworks in the township, but we have to,
If the state allows it, we can't hinder it. We have to have someplace set aside that we can allow it.
yes, that's what the ordinance, it's within what we call the Commercial Service Limited Industrial District in the township.
No, it's, if you're familiar with where Santa Auto Wreckers, the junkyard is along 322, just east of Buck Road, that area. And it has to be in a bricks and mortar building. It can't be a tent.
Going to close the hearing.
So we'll go ahead and close the hearing.
I'll make a motion, we adopt ordinance 05 of 2019.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to move on to, yeah, I was going to say, we're going to move on to an ordinance to amend Part 3, land use legislation.
So we'll open the hearing with respect to the second ordinance that's under consideration by the Board of Supervisors this evening. This title of the ordinance is a little bit lengthy, so bear with me. It's entitled "An Ordinance, the Township of East Brandywine, Chester County, Pennsylvania, amending Part 3, Land Use Regulation in Chapter 300, also amending East Brandywine Township zoning ordinance of 1989 as amended, which is codified in Chapter 399 entitled Zoning, to amend Article 10 titled Commercial Service Limited Industrial District to allow for medical marijuana growing or processing uses by conditional use, and by creating a new subsection in that section with respect to conditional uses, to also amend the mixed-use commercial district by creating a new subsection 10 to allow for the use of medical marijuana dispensary as a conditional use. Also to amend the supplemental regulations by creating a new section 102.7, medical marijuana grower, processor, or dispensary. Also to amend with respect to provisions related to off-street parking and loading by adding a new subsection 2, amending the historic resource protection standards, and also at section, and also to address provisions related to historic resource impact studies, and to amend mixed-use commercial district by adding schools as a conditional use, and to amend section 399-137 conditional uses by revising subsection D of these regulations in East Brandywine Township. So essentially, this ordinance combines several different amendments that are needed to your ordinances. It's collectively all in one ordinance. It's a more streamlined process and also saves the township money by doing it all at once. There are 3 exhibits on behalf of the Board of Supervisors this morning. The first one is marked as B1, and that's the proof of publication in the Daily Local News on July 17th and July 24th. Marked as B2 is an email dated July 16th from our office to the Chester County Law Library, providing the proposed amendment for public inspection. Marked as B3 is an email dated July 16th, again from our office to the Daily Local News, providing the proposed amendment for public inspection. So with respect to the notification requirements on behalf of the supervisors, those have all been met with respect to this ordinance to be considered by the supervisors.
Board have any questions?
I have none.
Any questions from the audience? Do you have anything?
If I may. John Jarris, I'm counsel to property owners in the township who were impacted by the proposed amendment. Just a question for clarification. Does the amendment include the change to definition of school?
Yes.
And Scott, is that the 399-66A2?
No, the definition of school is changed in the definition section of the ordinance.
Okay, but it is being covered as part of this amendment.
Yes.
Very good.
It's in section 1.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Once again, where is this going to take place, and I'm,
the same place.
Ma'am, just for the record, just because we are recording, would you mind identifying your?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy Chapraki,
Okay.
and
Brandywine Township.
could I also ask you to come up to the front for the microphone?
Because the video doesn't get anything other than the back.
Your questions in general were repeated by the person responding in your earlier line of query, but I think now's the time to invite you up, so, thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Chapraki, Brandywine Township. Is this already a done deal, that marijuana will be permitted
Well,
to
the
be grown?
state has
and
already allowed medical marijuana in
Through
Pennsylvania.
Melbourne.
But I
et
will
cetera,
tell you an
right.
interesting fact. I read a news article yesterday for what it's worth. The state also just revoked a license from a Pennsylvania, I don't know what, I think they were a grower, for coming up short on their stock count. And also they had a broken security camera. So the state clearly is on top of these companies. So I thought that was very interesting that they came up short on 2 or 3 plants and one camera was not working. They revoked the license. So, but it is a real thing. The state has allowed it. Therefore, townships have to be aware of it and make recommendations for places for it.
Well, it has its purpose, medical marijuana for sure. But I think we're going down a slippery slope. You know, they're now trying to, there's certain criteria, certain diseases that are proven are beneficial from it. But I think that the thought is going into this all-encompassing anxiety disorder, which who has not been nervous here? But I just think we really need to think about this, not only for here. A lot of you are young, you have kids, I know you have kids. Think about the impact on them. It's going to bring bucks to East Brandywine for sure. But don't sacrifice safety, health, and their future for a couple of dollars. That's my main thing.
Mrs. Chapraki, it's not about dollars. It's about making sure that, as with the fireworks, that they're limited to a specific location. Otherwise, if we don't do this, they can go anywhere. So we've created a location where this can occur. Whether it occurs in East Brandywine, we don't know, but we've got to be prepared in case we get an application.
Oh, you will. You will. There's too much land down here to not get an
But
application.
we're talking about, once again, a small area along 322 on the eastern part of the township,
Yeah.
where there's actually a limited amount of ground where this could occur. Could it occur there? Certainly, but it's better there than in, next door to you.
Well, I don't think it would happen next door because somebody would have to approve that and you would have to go through a hearing. And I can't imagine that anybody's going to approve growing marijuana in a residential area. So I don't think that's a valid concern in the scheme of things. My concern is the whole idea of, before you know it, they're going to be as frequent as any drugstore pharmacy. And I don't know that we've understood the full impact of the legalization, which is down the road, the impact that it's going to have on our future generations.
And I'm going to suggest to you, ma'am, that
I just, maybe this isn't the place for that discussion,
That-
but I just wanted to say I have concerns.
your concern should be expressed to your state representative and your state senator, because the approval of medical marijuana was done at the state level, and now we're left to
I
deal
was
with
there
it.
at that meeting too. Why
So
did we-
I'm just telling you those,
Yeah.
we can't now say, well, we disagree with the state law.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to comply with it.
Okay, well, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay, so,
Close the hearing.
so we're going to close the hearing and then we'll,
I'll make a motion, we adopt ordinance 06 of 2019.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're going to go back on the record and discuss the minutes of previous meetings for the Board of Supervisors, July 11th, 2019.
Motion to approve is submitted.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you vote on that?
Yeah.
And July 18th, 2019.
Motion to approve is submitted.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to old business, I'm going to turn it over to Luke for permission to advertise for waste and recycling collection.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. On July 18th, I distributed to the board and to other members of staff and representatives at Buckley Boyne a first draft of the a RFP for a waste hauler for at least 3 years. That would be 2020 through 2022. I've received feedback from Scott on one item that I'd like to discuss with you, and I've also received feedback from Buckley Bryan that this is satisfactory from a legal perspective in advertising and the soliciting bids portion. The matter that Scott brought up has to do with the date of collection. The way I wrote the RFP is that the current date is Thursday. The hauler may recommend an alternative date. If they do, it will be their responsibility to inform the residents in writing of the new collection date. The other thing is, I had left it up to the hauler to recommend a alternative date on any week where there was a holiday. Scott's feedback was that perhaps we should just specify that in a given week where there is a holiday, the collection date should be the day after the holiday. So that's the only substantive change from draft one that was distributed at your last meeting. So at this point, I'd like to get your feedback on the proposed change, and then also, if there's no additional feedback from the members of the board, I'd respectfully ask your permission to advertise this RFP.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I don't have any questions.
I would agree with Scott's recommendations that we not specify the day, and then that's my understanding what you're suggesting, letting it be more open-ended, because I think the only thing is, once we set the date, it should be the same date through the entire contract, so we don't have to notify people from year to year that we're changing the date. And with respect to the holidays, I know that there are some municipalities where the haulers, and I'm not sure the reason why, but the hauler does pick a different date, not necessarily the day after the holiday. So I'll be a little concerned about tying their hands there if there's some administrative or operational reason why they prefer to continue with their normal schedule with other municipalities and then have to juggle dates for the holiday.
Any other members of the board before I respond to that on the holidays and date of collection in the draft, the first draft that was distributed on the 18th? Okay. So Jay, would you be your preference that the hauler have discretion about a suggested alternative date for weeks with a holiday?
I think it needs to be, I think we need to know what the procedure is going to be. And it's got to be the same procedure throughout the entire contract. So I'm just concerned that if we say to them, it has to be, if they pick a Thursday, if we can stay with a Thursday, now Thursdays you very rarely have a holiday, but it could run into a holiday. If we say it has to be Friday, as opposed to them saying, well, because of all of our other municipal contracts, we're lighter on Wednesday, we'd rather do it on Wednesday, the day before. I think we ought to have that flexibility to negotiate that as part of the final contract. That's all I'm saying.
Is, weird question, but is there a way to tier it with the with the haulers to say, you know, if there's a lighter day, our township is willing to work out a financial agreement that benefits both of us? In other words, if it happens to be, you know, Tuesdays or they don't have a lot going on and all of a sudden they can cut us a 10% discount on hauling? I mean, is there a way to clause it in there to say such?
I would say that it's possible to write the RFP in that way. I think that the spirit of the RFP is to give the hauler options so that their quote overall is as low as possible. So the way that we write our RFP, the less flexible that is, the less likely it's going to neatly fit just randomly into a particular hauler's schedule, and therefore they're not going to bid as aggressively. I think if they have the flexibility to choose a Thursday and their current range of municipal customers means they have trucks available on Thursday, their bid would be lower. So I think that rather than trying to anticipate the value of a given day to every hauler, you work the flexibility in, and then you hope you get the best possible bids. I guess just to speak also kind of about the situation we have now. So let's say President's Day is a holiday for both the township and for the hauler. It's observed on a Monday. Right now, trash collection is Friday, even though Thursday is not the holiday. But because the haulers pushed back on their Monday contracts, that means that later in the week, that is causing our day to be late. And that's causing a little bit of confusion with residents because they're like, well, but Thursday wasn't the holiday. There was just a holiday earlier this week.
That was the nexus of my comment to Luke, is that it's been confusing for the residents all along. Even though we put it on our website, on a sign, on Facebook, we still get complaints about that. And that was contrary to our previous contracts, where if a holiday fell on a collection day, the next day after the holiday was the collection day. Republic changed that without letting us know about their program.
Well, if you think that's confusing, it would be even more confusing if it actually falls, the collection day actually falls on a holiday, and then they randomly pick a day that week to do the collection.
Yeah.
Like the day before.
Yeah, well, the day before is a real problem. Pushing it back a day is not too much of a problem because people just leave their cans out for another day, but moving it ahead would be a real issue.
Okay, well, how about we specify the range of dates that they could choose are Monday through Thursday. We'll exclude Friday as an option for them to choose. And then specify in any week where there's a holiday, they
That would
can
be
postpone by a day, or
Owned by one day, yeah.
that's kind of the status quo now.
Yep.
But that still gives them the opportunity to suggest a Tuesday or something. But I don't want them collecting on a Saturday.
No,
So
all right, that's fine, I'm fine with that.
okay, that's
I'll make a motion that we, with that alteration, that we authorize the advertising of the curbside municipal waste and recycling collection RFP.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to Deputy Chief Edwards for the East Brandywine Fire Company special funding request.
My self-esteem's hurt. I'm not sure how I came second to trash, but we can move on from there. Thank you. I just wanted to start by saying thanks to Chief Cozy, Lieutenant Yankevich. Last night we had a joint venture at the fire station, Pizza with Public Safety. The event was very well attended, very well received. At the end, we culminated by taking a photograph of the joint training venture between the police department and the fire department, which will be appearing in the daily local news shortly. It's no surprise as to why I'm here today before you guys. I had discussed at previous meetings about the dilemma we're in with fire gear at the fire station. I had reached out to the mile marker staff and wrote an article. Can we turn that down at all, Luke? Or am I too close to it?
I don't have a separate volume control for that.
I'll just stand back a
So
little
that
bit,
would
'cause-
make our mics really,
Okay.
really quiet.
I did write an article for the mile marker, providing data and pictures that they have said, that will be published. I shared with you, supervisors, what the dilemma is now, how we're trying to accommodate the firefighters with gear. We're gear sharing. We're taking gear from folks who don't respond because they're college and assigning it to other people. Our frontline firefighters are trying to have some gear. So you had asked me to come back with a little bit more in-depth presentation. So today I start with this slide, and the reason that slide's important to you is that is 30 to 40 volunteer firemen who have to have frontline fire gear. Frontline fire gear is important because it's dictated to the fire department by the NFPA, and right now we're not able to outfit 100% of those gentlemen right there. You can see we're out there training, we respond to all sorts of calls, we're very active. This is all not new to the Board of Supervisors, but it's part of the presentation because you can see how we have to wear gear at car accidents, we have to wear gear at fire calls, we have to wear gear at training. And again, I don't have the means to outfit everybody. So what does the proposed gear purchase come down to? We've been averaging 3 to 4 new active volunteers a month. In the article I wrote, while that is tremendous, we are ecstatic at the fire station. It poses a problem to myself and the fire chief because as the new people come in, recently we had 3 volunteers become National Fire 1. They are frontline firefighters that can go in and fight the fire. We had 4 volunteers complete the National Registry EMT. They have to be outfitted because they respond to the car accidents. They have to go into the vehicle when someone's trapped. And then we had 3 volunteers who just joined with previous experience and certification. So that's like hitting a grand slam because I don't have to send them to school. I don't have to send them to class. They're good to go as soon as I get them outfitted. Some of the data this year. We have responded to 500 fire and medical calls year to date. Of note, 12 of them have been working fires. By working fire, it's similar to the video I shared with you guys at Bolero Drive. Firemen are going into the burning building. They're advancing hose lines. They're putting their life in danger. They're putting the fire out. And to accomplish that, they have to have the equipment to do it. We've had 1 accident with entrapment. We've had 5 rapid intervention team responses. Remember I shared with you last meeting that we are one of the few companies in the county that are certified as a rapid intervention team. Our job when we respond to those calls is to be on the ready in case a fireman gets trapped, hurt, or goes down. The guys have to have the equipment to be able to do that. To keep our peak performance going, we've had 3 live fire trainings so far. And again, not to reemphasize, I know you say, Joe, you're beating a dead horse, but you have to have the full gear. There, just as I talk about this, a fireman was burnt in Delaware a few months ago. The study came out. Most of his burns because he was not properly outfitted. The gloves were wrong, the fire coat was wrong, the hood was wrong, the helmet was wrong. And what they thought was a tragic event, which it was because he got burnt, they're attributing most of his burns to improper gear, improper preparation to fight the fire. Current states of gear. Multiple sets of our personal protective outfits have significant damage. I'm lacking, I have no reserve to go outfit the firemen. Frontline firefighters are wearing compromised gear. We just had a training session last night and the chief and I looked down. My pants are ripped, his pants are ripped. So even the top guys have ripped turnout gear. The rules that we have to follow are dictated by NFPA 1851. It's the national standard for firefighter personal protection gear. You can look that up at your convenience if you say, hey, maybe some of the things Joe's blowing smoke. Anything over 5 to 10 years is considered not deemed for service. So think of that. The gear is quite expensive, and after 10 years, whether it's torn or whether it's not torn, I have to take it out of service. So before you used to be able to push it down the line and say, hey, well, you're the new guy, you're gonna wear Joe's set of gear that he wore, you're going to wear that. You can't do that any longer because when they present the fire school, the first thing the fire school does is reject you as a candidate to participate. So I provided you with some pictures. Now, it might not be clear in this shot, but this is supposed to be dark navy blue. Dark navy blue means it's ready to go. This has been worn. It has some tears in it. There's a state of a frontline firefighter's pants that he has to go crawling down the hallway. The knee pads are ripped. The Scotch Light's ripped. This is a fireman's coat. The reason the coat is like that is because he's been in some intense heat. It melted, it has burn marks. When it turns color like that on the sleeve, that's an indication that that gear should be placed out of service. I can't place that gear out of service. I need that guy to respond to over 100 calls a year. There's tears in the pants. Tears in the pants are the equivalent of a policeman going to a battle with a hole in his bulletproof vest. The fire will go through there, the water will go through there, the steam will go through there, and the fireman could be burnt pretty easily. There's the gear at the bottom right-hand corner. The gear's ripped and in disarray. Now keep in mind, let me emphasize, all this gear is in service with the firemen. I'm putting these guys out there with gear that is substandard. And the discoloration means that they've been against some heat. Heat happens when you go into the burning buildings. That fire coat should be taken out of service. Another one with just holes in it. So it's not just a random selection of, hey, 2 or 3 guys down there are running the flag up that they need new gear. This is across the system. So the formal bid for fire gear, I shared with you that it's not cheap. A fire coat is $1,620, fire pants $1,220, boots $418, a helmet's $290, fire gloves $125, rescue gloves are $38, a hood is $31, and the shield is $30. If you say to me, okay, great, we could do a fire coat, it doesn't work that way. It comes as a package. You have to buy the whole set to outfit the person that's going out there. The study I just referenced a few minutes ago, the firefighter was wearing rescue gloves. His hands sustained significant burns in the fire. You have to wear fire gloves to fight fire. You have to wear rescue gloves to rescue somebody. You have to have the hood to go over your face and encompass all your bare skin so you don't get steam burnt. Total cost of one set of gear for a fireman is $3,772 per set. It's projected that I need at least 10 more sets of gear to properly outfit the frontline guys and some of the new people are coming in. When I had talked to the board before, the one gentleman came up to the table, asked me how much did I need. I said $50,000. Then he said, well, is it $50,000 or what is it? I said, well, it's $40,000 until I got the bid. It's $37,720 for 10 sets of protective gear. Even if you wrote me the check today and said, hey, you know what, Joe, we agree with you, firefighter safety is the utmost importance. You know, we want you to go out and purchase it. It's not like I can go to the rack and purchase a shirt, pair of pants, boots for the shoes or a gun holster. Gear has to be measured, and then it takes 3 months to get into the fire station. So when I tell you that it's a crisis, the crisis is the fact that the newer people and the frontline guys who don't have the gear now, I have not 1 ounce of replacement to give to them. So we're falling behind because when people come in, gentleman in the back here, Township resident on Hopewell Road, Matt Blitzer, new fireman, he's wearing gear that we took from a college guy who is now back and wants to know where his gear's at, but Matt's wearing it. Matt's a senior firefighter going to fire school in September. I have to send him with Class A fire gear that he can go to. So I come to the board, open discussion. I can't emphasize enough to you how important this is to me as a fire chief to put our guys out there, eliminate as much as harm's way as I can. Plus, with the volunteer recruitment, the amount of volunteers that we've had here is tremendous, and I'm just looking for your guys' help and support and some direction. Hold on a minute, next slide. There you go. Questions and answers. I don't have all the answers, so, but I can sure as heck try to give it to you.
So I'll start with I only have 3. The first question I have is I know you said it's 3 months for the new gear to come in. What is the down payment required by the manufacturer for the is it 50%, is it 30% down payment, and then the rest upon completion of the product?
I'm going to go out on a stretch. I think it would be POD, cash on delivery. I can't speak for the manufacturer with that, but I would imagine from who we order our gear from, that would be cash on delivery.
Okay. And the reason why.
Well, not cash, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Yep. And the reason why I was asking that question is because, obviously, you brought this up to the board, at the last meeting, and actually since then I've gotten 2 or 3, I would say, no more than 3 emails, but some of the questions that I got from some residents. But the one, was we had talked about putting in, we talked about something and then this was brought up in an email. We had said, and don't quote me exactly on this, but we had said also, let's put this in the mile marker. And then we scheduled the new meeting for you to come back today. And the question that was asked by a resident was, why did you bother putting it in the mile marker if you're gonna have a vote on the funds? Because you're putting the cart before the horse. And I responded that we were trying to get a discussion going again today, and you were gonna come back with a firm number. So I wanna at least be clear to her on what we meant by that, you know, the mile marker it's important that it gets out there.
If I can interrupt you a second. So I think it's admirable we put in a mile marker. The mile marker to me is the equivalent of a Facebook GoFundMe. I'm going to ask for $37,000 and get $372. Maybe. You know, I don't want to put much faith in the fact that I wrote an article for the mile marker to say, hey, I don't know if anybody in this room thinks I'm going to get $37,000 from the mile marker. So in response to them, I would say, hey, if they can help with one set of gear, terrific, but I'm not putting much faith in that article. I'm putting the article in at the request of you guys for
Yep.
that. You know?
Well, that's why this it's a double-edged sword here with that question asking you about when the money
Yeah.
is due, and then also because this did just go into the
Yeah.
mile market. So that's,
And my understanding, I attended last night, and I will tell you, Chief, that just looking around at the guys that got dressed up, I was sort of surprised at how worn the equipment looked in light of this discussion. But my interpretation of this is that his request for 10 is the minimum that he needs, and it's apparent to me that he really needs a lot more than that, whether it's this year or next year, but we're looking at a cycle of where
Yeah.
a lot of this equipment has to be replaced. So my response to that woman would be, if the East Brandywine and West Brandywine fund this request and additional donations are made, that would allow the department to expand the project and maybe add a few more suits to replace some of these, some of the guys that are wearing what really is defective equipment.
and then that brought me up to my next question. Where are we with the other townships for soliciting of the funds for the gear? Have you guys gone to West Brandywine yet, and have you gone to Euclid?
So no, I haven't. And the reason I haven't done that is because I attend the East Brandywine meeting. I answer to you guys, and this is where I come at. If I look at the amount that Upper Euclid gives to the fire station, I would say they're probably, for the amount of calls, not willing to fund much. If you get caught in the political nightmare of going to West Brandywine versus East Brandywine, West Brandywine versus East Brandywine, I think that the fire amount of money they've given us is maybe maxed out there. That I don't think they have another dollars. Not that you guys do either, but I guess I look at you guys as the main people that might be able to help me. So that's why.
But I think it's fair that we do, I mean, you know, again, an East Brandywine resident wants to know that if they're sharing a service, that they're sharing all. So I think we have to, albeit you or Chief, you know, at least reach out to them to exalt all efforts. Because I do think that they need to be aware of the situation as well. You know what I mean? It's just in fairness to everybody. And what was your, I'm sorry, you were saying something else and it just clicked on me.
No, I don't think I was. But I thank you very much for the presentation. I'm concerned that we're sending firefighters into these situations with equipment in this state. And I think I know you're in the process now of, or we'll shortly be meeting with the budget group, and I think consideration has to be given to adding into the budget regular replacement of this equipment so that hopefully we're not in this situation 10 years from now when the new equipment is phased out. But I share Kyle's concerns that any time we contribute to the fire company and West Brandywine doesn't contribute, we're putting the burden on East Brandywine residents to fund what essentially is a service for West Brandywine. So I don't know. You have any?
Well, I think that I would agree with you on the concern with the East Brandywine residents with the financing and funding of this, but I also feel that their safety is more important than, kicking us down the road to try to figure out where they can get funding from other people for their fair share. So I would suggest, and I would prefer to, it's gonna take 3 months to get it. That's gonna put us at the end of October, November. And I think that, I think that we could explore it in the budget period, talks with West Brandywine and Upper Euclid, and maybe look into the Fireman's Relief Fund for the possibility of putting some of that into for the gear. But in the meantime, I think that we should.
What is the Fireman's Relief Fund?
So the Fireman's Relief Fund is a pass-through through the state that the fire company gets money to only purchase life-saving equipment, insurance for the fire company. This year, we had to purchase hose for the new apparatus, Engine 49-2, which took up the majority of our budget for the Fireman's Relief. It's $12,000, $15,000 that you get from the state. And again, I don't have that number specifically, so if I tell you 15 and it's 16, I'm not sitting here lying to you. I just don't have that number directly. The thing is that while I appreciate you guys telling me, hey, let's seek out West Brandywine, if you look at how it's broken down, what in equality, would they fund 3 sets of gear? You guys fund 8 sets of gear, and Upper Euclid 1 set of gear? I don't know. I know that my number one priority is the firefighter safety, and it falls on the fire chief, it falls on the deputy chief, and it ultimately falls on the people who are putting them out there. So I'm taking a huge, huge risk by having people respond to calls with gear that's not adequate. And you will get roped through the court system if someone gets hurt with that. And that's why, I don't know if I can get caught in the political thing. If this is their share, this is your share, this is their share. I need fire gear. And I got volunteers down there that are willing to respond to help everybody's residents. So I've been in the fire service. You guys have seen me up here before. I've done the political thing, and it's just it's not worth presenting the same to them as you guys for what is it going to amount to, 2 or 3 sets, worth having say, hey, today, you know what, we're making a stand that our firefighters are important to us. We're making a stand that the fire service is important to us. And Chief, we understand the dilemma you're in, and we're gonna move forward with it. And that's what I'd hope that comes out. It says, hey, order the gear. If I'm able to pinch some money out of them, great. If I'm able to pinch some money out of them, great. But in the meantime, we're making a stand and saying East Brandywine Fire Company is important to East Brandywine Township. Those guys are important to us. Their safety is important to us. I know it's important to me. It scares me every time we get a fire because their gear's not right.
No,
So that's why I'm sitting there.
I couldn't agree with you more. However, as I said, it's a double-edged sword. I get heat no matter what, whether it's police or fire. And believe it or not,
You don't get the heat they get to Kyle when there's hole in their gear, believe me.
But what I'm saying is, as a taxpayer, I get emails a lot about police budget. Very few on the fire department, very few. But what I do need to do is answer to constituents. So here's what my reason for my questions were today, because I did get the 3 emails. I have no problem giving you the $37,000. What I do want to make sure though is that again, we have the mile marker story coming out. I think we need to preface in there, please make funds funds out and have it stated what it was for, so that if an East Brandywine resident says, okay, well, I paid for this, but I wanted to show up as it was earmarked for that fund. Second of all, again, I have no problem giving the $37,000, but I think that there should be a public discussion with West Brandywine and Upper Euclid, and any money that would come back to that goes back to the East Brandywine taxpayers for what they contributed 100% for. Again, safety is utmost of importance. However, also people look at their wallets too.
So, and again, not counteracting, but my concern is that we go and we make this presentation to West Brandywine, and their answer is, we have $0 to give you and we can't fund it. I go to Upper Euclid and I say, hey, we have $0 and we can't fund it. I'm back to square one.
No, you're not, because I just said, me personally, I haven't spoke for these guys,
Yeah.
but I've said, as a township supervisor, I have no problem giving you the full amount, but what I need is some reassurance that everybody else is being asked the same way as one township that's
I
shared
can
with
guarantee you, we will make the same presentation to both of them. What I can't guarantee you is their willingness, as you are, to say, hey, we have some funds that we can help you out with. I can, on my end, say, yes, absolutely, the same passionate plea for firefighter safety can be made. What I can't sit here and talk about is their willingness to give. I mean, I think it's fair.
Yeah, yep, but like I said, I also have to answer
Yeah.
to people who say, well, why weren't you looking out for our best interests as residents of East Brandywine? I'm looking out for everybody's interest. First and foremost, yours, you know?
Yeah.
The money's there, it's on my behalf, it's just a matter of, now, we are a board of three, don't forget.
It's just like the citizen who came up last meeting and looked at me over there and he said, if your funding was 100%, would you be happy? Well, I don't know who says no to that. Of course I would be happy. But he also had, you know, whatever we were to get from West Brandywine, should I go, then, you know, I think it should go back to, if you allot $37,000, go back towards that money. In the meantime, I'm asking you guys to approve that. If I am fortunate enough to get 2, 3, I don't know. You know, I can't talk for them, but put that towards the money that you allocated. I think that's the better way to go than say, well, you know, let's see what you get here, here, and here, you know, and then we'll put it all together.
Right. I just think it's important to be upfront and clear to everybody that, you know, at least on my stance, you know, these guys still have to give opinions as well, but I'm just, you know, giving you my.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, what I said, that's how I see it.
Well, I think my concern is if we're gonna wait for the fire department to go and talk to West Brandywine and then talk to Upper Euclid, then they're gonna have to get and put in their public meeting to decide, and then that's gonna take another month, and then that's 4 more months that they're not gonna be able to get the safety gear that's desperately needed. You know, we did fund the Bondsville Mill Committee with a support for a grant at the end of last year, and I think that we should be funding this now, so I'm gonna make a motion to,
All right, well, Jay still has to.
well, he already.
Go ahead, you can make the
I'm
motion.
gonna make a motion to approve the funding for the $37,920 order of the new fire gear that is needed, with the understanding that we'll be talking about this in the budget, so you'll be talking to Upper Euclid, West Brandywine, whatever donations will be contributed back, or however we decide later, but for right now, I think we should get the order started, and do I have a second?
Can I make a comment before that?
Absolutely.
Joe, you didn't know how much money's provided by East Brandywine Township for the Fireman's Relief. It was $58,000 this year. And there's also $1.189 million in the capital reserve. Why isn't that being used?
I can't talk to the relief, but Scott, your number for $58,000, you know that goes for air pack purchases, that goes for insurance, that goes for coverage of the apparatus, that goes for other different policies, and you know with your previous experience that after you dole all those things out, the amount of money left over to purchase equipment is down to this $15,000 to $18,000 mark. That's been a budgeted line item for all the time since you've been there, as to how much money is left over when you get X number of dollars that you pay for all the other insurances and coverages that you have to have, that you're left with about $18,000 to buy equipment. Now, unless I have a total misunderstanding for that, that is how I see, the relief budget.
Well, I think that's, I had mentioned that earlier, that's going to be part of the discussion later, but for now, I'm still going to maintain the motion to fund the, go ahead and proceed with the ordering for the $37,920, and we can get the process started and then have them talk to the other townships. So, do I have a second?
I will second, but I just want to be clear. Again, we have to answer to constituents. We are getting ready to put this in the mile marker. We should think about how we word the mile marker to state, that funds collected for this story, so to speak, in the mile marker would be returned back for the initial investment. Again, I don't have a problem giving the money up front. That's not the issue. That's why I was asking you what the time frame was. It was 3 months.
It's 3 months, and, we don't have a problem. I think we have to make an addendum to the mile marker article, which Scott got to see the article, put a little caveat at the end to say, please mark your donation for gear purchase.
Just to be fair.
And then I don't mind bringing, whatever we were to receive, funnel it back up the hill.
Or even get more gear. I'm not saying that it has to be,
That's a good point, Kyle, because as Jay,
I'm sorry to cut you off. I just,
Oh.
it starts right now, and I just thought it was important to be here for this presentation.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry. I have to leave. Thank you.
10 sets of gear is a Band-Aid.
real quick,
Ah.
just thinking out loud. Jason, if you leave, we have to vote on this. He wanted to.
And I just wanted to say that my position is, I think you gentlemen are being naive if you think that West Brandywine's going to contribute anything when you've approved 100% of the funding. And my position is that what we should approve today is our fair share in accordance with the formula, which would be $20,400. And that I appreciate, and I'm very sympathetic about the position the fire company's in, dealing with the politics between, the politics in West Brandywine. I don't think we have politics affecting the fire company in East Brandywine negatively, but their refusal to step up and fund their fair share of this fire company has been a thorn in my heel for 15, 20 years. And I thought we had it resolved when we worked out that agreement, and them backing out of that agreement is a huge disappointment to me. But I think that they should contribute to this as well, because as far as I'm concerned, they're responsible for whatever their percentage is, 40% of the fire company, one way or another. But if go ahead. So you have your motion in a second.
So the motion is to go ahead and, you want to repeat your motion so I don't get your wording wrong, and I'll.
Probably not gonna be the same one the third time. I'll make a motion.
Right?
It's on the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to fund the $37,920 for the East Brandywine Fire Company to go ahead and order the gear that they are needed, the 10 sets of safety gear. And we will be discussing this later in the budget. You'll be doing your meeting and requesting from other people, and
As well as looking
as
into.
well as looking
the-
into the additional funding for the same thing with the mile marker. Anything comes in, we'll discuss that.
And the other townships.
And other townships, yes. He's going to be making presentations and seeking support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
So I just want to, thank you, Jason, appreciate it. But when you and I were talking, when you were saying about the 10 sets, and Supervisor Fisher alluded to it, that's like a Band-Aid.
That's to get you going, right?
We applied for the grant to replace every set of gear. If you really do what a lot of fire departments do, everybody has 2 sets. Just think of the cost that we would be asking for that. But we applied for the grant to replace everybody's set, and apparently there's much more needy people out there than East Brandywine, because we got denied, that we didn't have enough percentage of. So I don't know what they're alluding to, but like I said, we're trying every effort on our end to minimize how many we have to get. Like I said, the gear sharing and everything else. So I appreciate your guys' approval today. I will guarantee you that the chief and I will make this same presentation to West and Upper Euclid, and then I'll report back to you.
Yeah, and you know, in all fairness to everybody needs to be aware of the situation. So, so I appreciate your presentation, and thank you for coming in, or coming back in for it. Okay, so we're gonna go over to Scott now for the Fair Districts PA follow-up.
I'm just asking whether the board has considered the request from July 18th's meeting by the Fair Districts PA group that was here about the resolution that's in your packet.
So, me personally, no, I haven't, unfortunately. I was away on vacation. I actually haven't even had 5 minutes to go back and read through this. But the one question that I had was, I remember asking at the meeting, there was some clarification I was looking for I got a couple emails on this as well as the live presentation, but there's a couple different wordings that I've seen this, and it says, one of them says approved by the commissioners, but the verbiage says a similar request has been approved by the county commissioners. What I was trying to get to was, is this the exact one that the county commissioners approved, not a similar version? That's where we have to come up with some exact word verbiage.
I'll have to ask Christiana Ottinger if that's what the commissioners passed.
Yeah, if we could get the exact one, because there's 2 or 3 different ones and the verbiage is different in all of them. And that shouldn't be that hard, but that would probably come from the county, I would imagine.
Because
And
I'm
again,
sure
I'm
she's
sorry,
gonna.
real quick, you're not playing politics when you're dealing with the county commissioners, because you have Democrats and Republicans both on that board, so.
Understood. I know she's gonna ask.
Yep.
So I wanted to be prepared. Okay, I will get that from her. Thank you.
Sure.
Brief executive session
Yeah.
with the chief.
Yep. I'm just looking through here. I don't think we have anything else. Just, do we have any public comment on agenda items this evening?
Morning.
This morning? Seeing none, we're gonna move, we're gonna move on. And then, just to notice that the board will meet, in executive session, to discuss personnel issues, that the chief has asked us to talk about. And, anything else, anybody?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.